Mic check, mic check. What's going on? Welcome back to another episode of Hip-Hop Snapshots. I'm your host, Ross Martinez. And for the last few episodes, we've been talking about how hip-hop grew outwards from New York and settling roots in different regions in America and the Caribbean and the UK. Today, let's talk about hip-hop, how it didn't start as a genre of music. It started as a human reflex of rhythm, story, memory, community, and long before the Bronx had park jams and MCs, Africa had griots. So grab a crate, take a seat, because this isn't an episode about how hip-hop grew roots in Africa. It's about how hip-hop finally came home. Without further ado, it's time to talk hip-hop history. In West Africa, griots were living archives. They carried history and cadence. They passed down lineage through rhythm and repetition. A griot, or a jali, is a revered West African hereditary storyteller, a musician, oral historian, and diplomat who preserves cultural history, genealogy, and traditions through song and spoken word. Acting as living archives, they play instruments like the kora or ngoni, and traditionally serve as advisors, mediators, and praise singers for families and communities. Does any of that sound familiar? So when hip-hop took shape in New York, born from Black and Caribbean communities, shaped by displacement and survival, it wasn't inventing something new, it was remembering something from the past. Africa didn't inspire hip-hop from afar. Africa was already inside the DNA of hip-hop. Think of it as this. Hip-hop left, learned new tools in America, and came back home like the kid who went to study abroad. Hip-hop didn't spread through labels or press releases. It traveled through pirate radio, VHS recordings, dance floors, word of mouth, and dub cassette tapes. Those dub tapes, we see that all over the globe. In Senegal, hip-hop arrived through dub tapes, passed hand to hand, often in English, slowly decoded, absorbed, and reshaped. It took nearly a decade before the culture fully took root. It's because people weren't just copying sounds, they were learning how to make them speak locally. And that patience matters. It takes time. Hip-hop doesn't land overnight, it settles and spreads. One of the most important players in this portion of hip-hop history is Sidney Dute. Known simply as Sidney, he, in 1982, hosted a hip-hop radio show on Radio 7 in France. By 1984, he was hosting Hip Hop, the first hip-hop TV show in the country, and that mattered for two reasons. He became the first Black man in France to hold that kind of cultural position on national TV, and that show proved that hip-hop was a niche. It was magnetic. Sidney didn't just play music, he translated culture. This is how hip-hop crossed oceans, through people willing to build platforms before there was profit to be had. Before people understood the lyrics, they understood the movement. Michael Jackson mattered in this portion. His dancing, especially break-influenced style, made hip-hop visible in places where the language barrier still existed. Breakdancing didn't need subtitles. It became a global handshake. Oh, you're a breaker, I'm a breaker, cool. Windmill. Oversimplification, but you get it. The same goes for TV shows like The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. DJ Jazzy Jeff and Will Smith didn't just export music, they exported a vibe, humor, style, and accessibility. Hip-hop became familiar before it became fluent. By the late 80s and early 90s, African hip-hop stopped translating and started authoring. In South Africa, groups like Prophets of the City, POC, used hip-hop as a direct weapon against apartheid. Reddy D and Shaheed Reefdeen rapped in Afrikaans. Senyaka and Kekana helped lay groundwork that later shaped Koweïto. My apologies for any of this pronunciation. And hip hop wasn't just entertainment here in this region, it was testimony. Groups like SSP blended American beats with Portuguese flow, creating a distinctly Angolan voice. Junior and Pretty pioneered commercial rap using pidgin English, making hip hop feel local and accessible. And later, artists like anti-apartheid would dominate the continent, reshaping what African hip hop could sound like at this scale. That was translation with a purpose. And once you start seeing yourself, your perspective, your voice, your culture within the music, it's easier to become more fluent with it. Hip hop survives when people protect it. In Johannesburg, an individual by the name of Osmic, Osmic, didn't just participate in the culture, he preserved it. He found Back to the City Festival in 2007. Now it's Africa's largest street culture event. He helped establish the South African Hip Hop Awards and also spearheaded the South African Hip Hop Museum. All that history in Johannesburg by an individual named Osmic Minnow, Osmicmenoe. That's important. Individuals who come into this with care, with compassion, and just trying to provide a space for the culture to grow. Custodians. Back in the U.S., hip-hop artists were already looking toward Africa for grounding, identity, and resistance. Groups like X-Clan, Boogie Down Productions, and Dead Prez, to later moments like Kendrick Lamar's Grammy performance, Africa wasn't just a metaphor, it was home. When Kendrick stood in front of the African continent with Compton written across it, that wasn't symbolism, it was a thesis statement. In 2026, hip-hop is everywhere. But being everywhere isn't the same as being rooted. So this portion, this snapshot, reminds us of this. Africa, hip-hop is communal before it's commercial. Movement matters as much as music. Language evolves, but intent stays sacred, and culture survives through care. Hip-hop didn't conquer the world, it connected it. Mic check, mic check. That's another hip-hop snapshot. I'm your host, Ross Martinez, and if you take anything away from this episode, let it be this. Hip-hop at its core is community. Individuals bringing their gifts to the table and sharing. And at its core, hip-hop's DNA comes from Africa, just like life. So I gave you names. Go dig through crates. Learn something new. Listen to somebody you haven't heard before. And learn history through music. And as always, be hip-hop. I'm out. Peace.